Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Sunday Supplement. Coming up on today's show, another new era at Arsenal begins. Unai Emery sacked after just 18 months since he replaced the legendary figure of Arsene Wenger. Liverpool, they equal a club record. They stretch their unbeaten Premier League run to 31, and it's 3 out of 3 for the special one. Tottenham, they've moved up to 5th with that 3-2 victory over Bournemouth. Jostling for position with us this morning, Sean Custis is head of sports at The Sun. Mark Ogden is a senior football writer with ESPN, and Matt Law is football news correspondent at the Daily Telegraph. Morning, guys. Thanks very much for joining us. I see you all got the memo this morning, suitably attired and wearing blue as well.
Blue day.
Like it is a blue day. OK, don't forget you can tweet the show at Sunday Sup. The best will appear on screen over the next 90 minutes. Let's have a look at the papers then. Who's getting the Arsenal job? Back of the Sunday Mirror. Go for the arts. He was on the bench yesterday alongside Pep Guardiola in that 2-2 draw for Man City against Newcastle. But is he the next manager of Arsenal? The Sunday Mirror seem to think he will get the job. But is it this man, the dream job, the one he always wanted, according to the Star? Arsenal target Brendan Rodgers, his side Leicester in action against Everton later this afternoon. But is it this man, back of the Sunday Express? Poch's £12.5 million handcuffs. He can't join another club. He can't take over another team in the Premier League until next season, according to the Sunday Express. Pochettino also targeted by Arsenal, according to the Sunday Express and Manchester United. Sunday Telegraph, Matt's paper then, reflecting on Virgil van Dijk, the double for him. Liverpool winning 2-1 against Brighton yesterday. But Matt's story here, Pochettino warned of taking the Arsenal job. Matt says that friends of Pochettino say he should wait for a bigger club and a better job to come along. The Sunday Times this morning, Pep Guardiola in a dark mood after that result at St James's Park yesterday. He could be brightened up if they sign Soyuncu from Leicester City. That's their main target in the next transfer window. Jonathan Northcroft also with the story. He's convinced that Guardiola will stay, refresh the squad and build a new title-winning team at Manchester City. The Sunday Express, their goals pull out. Delhi's doing the alley shuffle. Matt and Sean were at White Hart Lane yesterday to see him score twice in that 3-2 victory. Ali playing well again at the moment. Sunday Mirror, Weep Our Family. Dave Martin making his West Ham debut yesterday, clean sheet. And of course we saw those emotional scenes with his father in the press box at Stamford Bridge yesterday with Alvin. International football we'll talk, get on to a bit later, back of the Mail. Enjoy the hype. This is Gareth Southgate reflecting on his memories of Euro 96 and England's run to the semi-final. He wants to go one better and get to the final, though. Next summer, England, of course, drawing the group, including Croatia and the Czech Republic, and one other, could be Scotland. We won't know for a few months who the final team is in that group, in Group D. But we'll talk about England a little bit later on. But big news from the Emirates this week, guys, and of course that is the demise of Unai Emery, losing 2-1 his last game in charge, the Europa League game against Eintracht Frankfurt, having been a goal up. Did Arsenal have to make this decision, Sean? Was it the end of the road?
Inevitable. I mean, you could see it. You only had to watch Thursday night to see the empty spaces, although I'm sure the crowd was still 59.95. But the empty spaces, the atmosphere. I know the angry squad at Arsenal can go over the top sometimes, but I think fully with justification at the moment. Football was boring. His tactics were driving the players mad. He couldn't communicate with them. He couldn't communicate with the fans. He couldn't communicate with the media. People say, well, you know, what's wrong with having a foreign manager in? It doesn't matter if you can't speak the language. I think it does. You see it with Guardiola. You see it with Klopp. They communicate well. They have a link with the fans by the way they talk to them. The fans appreciate it. And when you've got players like Bellerin, as he did the other week, pretty much openly taking the mickey out of him, before a press conference, you've got big problems. I remember when Capello was England manager, and he said you only need 100 words of English, didn't he? And that was plainly nonsense. The players didn't understand what he was saying. Capello had a phrase: everything's very important, very important, very important, very important. To the point when you heard it so often. How can anything ever be very important? Because it was one of the few phrases he knew and kept repeating. You see the same with Emery, except you could sort of understand Capello a little bit. You couldn't understand Emery at all. You'd go to a press conference, and I did go to a few in his time. You couldn't work out what you'd come out of there. What's the line? What on earth are those quotes about? People would try to interpret them, but it was hopeless. So we couldn't do that. I'm sure the players couldn't either.
Was it the end?
Yeah, I think it's been the end for a while. Right from the outset, he seemed a very kind of unimpressive appointment. Just
almost got it by default, because I don't think Arsenal were ambitious enough to get a manager that was of the status of Arsenal, because Arsenal, let's be honest, are, behind United and Liverpool, they're probably the third biggest club in England. They've got real ambitions, got a great stadium, London base. They've got a history, a Premier League history, and Unai Emery was a bit like, is that it? This guy couldn't even win the French title with PSG in his first season, so he had a great record at Sevilla in the Europa League, but maybe he's a Europa League manager, and Arsenal need a Champions League manager, a guy with the credentials to match the status of the club. And I think, he had a bit of a decent run during his first season, but got to the Europa League final, but they never looked convincing enough to win it. And I think from this season onwards, it just looked like the old Arsenal again, the bad old Arsenal of the late Wenger days. Couldn't defend very well, no midfield quality, great going forward, but again just felt very flaky, and whenever they played a team of any substance like Liverpool away, just got beaten. So it could have gone any time this season, really. And I think that Arsenal have made the right decision, but they clearly seem a bit confused as to what happens next.
On the communication issue, Matt, which Sean's just talked about, I've got some sympathy for Emery in the sense that this is a guy who's Spanish, worked in France, learned French, comes to England 18 months, and perhaps people would argue that within 18 months you should have a command of the language, and that's a fair point. But this is a guy who committed to learning it. It's not as though he didn't make any attempt to learn the language. And we go to your man Pochettino. If I look at his record at Southampton, first couple of the years there, he was a translator in every single press conference he used. But there's a lot of love for Pochettino, and there still is.
But you got across a message. I mean, it's as much about, you don't have to speak like the Queen's perfect English. I don't think, no one's really saying that. It's about being able to communicate a message. Some managers, some people can do it with very limited English. You can still communicate a message. Conte's English wasn't always brilliant, but he was good at communicating a message when he wanted to. Pochettino, for a long time, his English wasn't brilliant. Even towards the end at Tottenham, he would refer to his assistant, Jesus Perez, to help him get across a message, but he could get across a message. Emery's problem was, I don't think it was necessarily his command of English. It didn't help, but he never communicated a strong message, from what I could tell.
Do you think he didn't have an actual commanding presence, and also the tone of his voice was sort of didn't give you a sort of commanding?
It wasn't inspiring.
There's no charisma, is there?
There's nothing inspiring about
Conte's
him.
always did. I always thought Conte's did, but I don't.
Sarri
think he
couldn't.
That. No.
And Sarri actually, if you look at results, didn't do that bad a job at Chelsea. Fans never took to him because he couldn't communicate with them. And that seems to be quite a strong thing these days, because you've got Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp, who have built up such a connection with the fan base, and Pochettino as well, before it went wrong at Tottenham, built such a connection with the fan base that now if you have a manager who can't do that, it seems to be a problem.
Well, it lacks the charisma to kind of win over the players as well, because Conte and Pochettino both had that, in the sense that they were both players, but you could see them mingling with the players and having that respect. Emery looks like a guy from the office. He looks like the bank manager who has no kind of sense of, come on lads, let's get a result today. They probably look at him thinking, well, what has he got to offer? He's a tactician, he's a textbook manager, and they need more than that to inspire players these days.
Wenger looked a bit like a teacher, and he won everybody over. I mean, he had a brilliant command of the English
But he
language.
had charisma, didn't he? He had that kind of leadership charisma.
He could communicate a message when he wanted to.
Yeah. What was fatal for Emery? I thought Ozil. I thought that was significant. That he bombed Ozil. You're out.
Yeah, I think.
And
Also,
that was a big decision. You're no longer part of the team. And in a moment of crisis and weakness, he brought him back into the team. And then it was, well, you're no longer in charge.
But also Xhaka, I think with that, I think he danced to the tune of the fans on Xhaka. They didn't want him in the team, and he dropped him and stripped him of the captaincy, and only brought him back for the Frankfurt game. So it felt like he was beginning to panic and just do what the fans wanted. And you can't really do that if you're a manager. You have to be strong enough to, back your own convictions. And you're right, Ozil was out of the team for about 7-8 weeks. Suddenly comes back in, and it was like he was panicking and thinking, I've got to get the fans back on side and find a way to turn things around. But the fans never really bought into him anyway, did they?
There was five captains.
Well, he couldn't pick his own captain, could he?
You can pick his own, but when he picked Xhaka, a lot of people were going, well, will he start? I mean, one of the key ingredients, surely, for your captain is that he's a definite starter in the team. I refer back to England again, but I remember when Beckham was made England captain, there was only about 3 candidates, because you knew he would be in the team. David Seaman was another candidate. He was a keeper. You tend not to give it. Here at Arsenal,
I'm not sure Bex thought there were 3 candidates.
Well, possibly
only one,
not.
Wasn't there?
But I mean, I know maybe you don't even like strikers, but it seemed to me that Aubameyang, somebody like him, who you know is going to start and commands the respect of all the other players, to me would have been the one.
But Emery's not. I don't think Emery's a problem at Arsenal. You can have a short-term fix by replacing the manager, but the ownership at Arsenal, I mean, it's slowly just chipping away at that club because the ownership under the Kroenkes has been terrible. And the executives they've now appointed, Sanalé, has he done a good job? No. Don't know what Edu does. Hus Fahmy seems to be involved. No idea what he does. I mean, they put out a statement the other week backing Emery. There's nobody's name on it. The most pointless statement in the world. Nobody would put their name on that statement. Josh Kroenke, Stan Kroenke, Ralph Sanley, anyone.
But Matt, that statement said my interpretation of that statement was we're about to sack the manager because no one.
So why put it out? I mean, it was the most pointless statement ever, and no one had it in them to actually put their name to the statement. And that sums up Arsenal. Who's picking the next manager? Is it Sanley? Is it Josh Kroenke? Is it Edu? Is it Hus Fahmy? Is it a football agent? Who is picking the next manager at Arsenal?
And what do they want? And what's the criteria?
Yeah.
It's a bit like
they
Man United
don't
in
know.
some respects.
They don't know. The ownership and the people making the decisions have been shambolic.
What about who decided the signings, though? I mean, who ultimately said, right, we'll bring in Pepe for 70 million, one-footed Pepe for 70 million, and not a centre-half? Who decided that?
Well, it's crazy. And that's going to cause them so many problems because they've still got to rebuild their whole defence. And yet they've spent 70 million on Pepe play they didn't really need. You've got Aubameyang, who's going to be 31 in the summer, might want to leave. Lacazette, 29 in the summer, might want to leave. You might have to replace 2 strikers or at least get one in. It's going to cost you massive money. Probably not going to be in the Champions League. It's a horrible job.
But that's always been the way. I mean, they signed Mkhitaryan for no reason. They didn't really need Mkhitaryan. They've signed all these forward players over the years that they haven't really needed when there's been a glaring hole in the back four and the centre midfield, and it continues to remain unfilled. It's been like that for 10 years.
Yeah.
And they also end up going back in defence to somebody like Callum Chambers, who's been on loan a couple of times, signed a long time ago, never really held down a place there, and they're having to, employ him in a defence when they actually have decided he's not good enough.
So who is good enough for the job? Freddie Ljungberg takes the team today at Norwich. Mark, of course, we know his connection stitched into the fabric of the club. Great player, but can he be a great interim manager?
He can be a great interim manager, but what Arsenal have to be careful of is avoiding what Man United did with Solskjaer. I mean, Arsenal should look at United for a lot of reasons. Succeeding Ferguson, succeeding Wenger, the Moyes appointment was a bad one, Emery's been a bad one. Watch Man United look at Solskjaer and realise that the immediate bounce that you get from a caretaker manager shouldn't be enough to convince you that he's the guy for the job. Solskjaer may prove to be, and that there are doubts over that at the moment, but if Ljungberg does well, gets Arsenal into the top 4, is that enough? Does he have the credentials to manage a club at Arsenal? I don't think he does. I think Arsenal, for too long, haven't punched the weight. They are a big, powerful club. The ownership, I agree, is an issue, but they generate a lot of money at that stadium. It's a brand new stadium in London. Arsenal should be going out for the very best. They should have gone after Guardiola when he was in between Bayern Munich and Man City, because that is the sort of club they are. They've got a lot in their favour for a coach. They all want to live in London. They all want to coach in London. But for whatever reason, like I said, the ownership is very conservative, very safe. Why on earth they went for Emery, I don't know. I don't know what credentials he brought. It doesn't fit the identity of an Arsenal manager. So Arsenal should take the time and look around and get the best guy out there, because they are a club that can do that.
Have they got a lot in their favour, though, to tempt a top manager? I mean, a top manager coming there, I mean, I think Mourinho, had he been given the choice between Tottenham and Arsenal, would go Tottenham. The squad is stronger. The development seems further along the way. Arsenal seems to be a club very much in decline. So will a really top manager want to risk his reputation going to Arsenal when it could take, I don't know, 5 years to rebuild the place?
I take your point on that, and the ownership issue is the issue that American-owned clubs tend to be less ambitious, shall we say, than clubs like Man City, Chelsea. But Liverpool have shown that if you get the right people in place, American-owned clubs can work pretty well. I just think managers and coaches want historic clubs. They want historic clubs with tradition. And I keep stressing the London thing, but London is a massive, massive pull for top coaches.
I never thought I'd hear you say that, Mark. Are you moving?
I feel like I'm often enough, aren't I? So, but I just think, London is a huge draw. You can't escape it, and even United and City. Yeah, United and City find it difficult to get players at times. Arsenal should play on that.
Freddie Ljungberg's quite an edgy character. He's quite strong. I mean, I know we've got to go back a bit to remember him as a player, but I talked to him a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I was very determined to get into coaching, very determined to do it in a certain way, do his badges, learn along the way. He went to, was he assistant to Wolfsburg or something like that? He went to Germany. He's back here. He sees Arsenal very much as somewhere he belongs. I mean, this is a man as well who's happy to take on Zlatan. You know, I mean, they famously don't get on, and Freddie doesn't care. So he is prepared to mix it with a few egos, and has quite a strong character. He's quite a complex bloke, but he's quite a strong character, and I can see him rattling a few cages actually.
What about your man Pochettino? Warned off taking the Arsenal job. Why?
I think it'd be crazy to take it. I mean, you've got less chance of winning a trophy at Arsenal, I think, at the moment than he had at Tottenham. Walking just into a world of problems, ruin your legacy at Tottenham. If he sits tight, maybe even before the end of the season, if he sits tight, he'll have Bayern Munich at some stage, maybe offer him a job. You could have Real Madrid, you could have Man United. Why would you jump straight in at Arsenal?
Does his legacy at Tottenham matter, though?
I think it matters to him, yeah. I do genuinely. Having covered Tottenham and Pochettino for a long time, I genuinely think it does matter to him. I could see him being Tottenham manager again one day, easily. I could see him going off and managing a few other clubs and coming back and being Tottenham manager again one day.
Under the Levy regime?
Possibly, or another regime.
But you said, I mean,
I think he'll think he's got unfinished business there one day.
Really?
Also, the longer he stays out, the better he'll get. It's always the same.
Exactly.
He'll sit tight, and every job that comes up, we're going, it's one for Pochettino, that.
But Arsenal spent a lot more money than Tottenham in recent seasons. They've backed the managers more than Tottenham have. So would he not have a bit of devil in him thinking, you know, maybe I can be more successful? And are Arsenal a bigger club than Tottenham? Probably.
What about the alternatives? So we mentioned a couple of names. Max Allegri, another name, doing the rounds, inevitably out of work since leaving Juventus, but wants that year-long sabbatical. Brendan Rodgers at Leicester City, doing a brilliant job, clearly.
I think Rodgers would be the best pick, but I'd be surprised if you could get him mid-season.
Would he take it?
At the end-
If you said, OK, Lundberg to the end of the season, then the job is yours, Brendan, what does he do? Stick or twist?
I think he'd probably go then.
Absolutely.
Wants Man
I think
City, though, doesn't he?
Mid-season.
Wants Man City now.
He'd do it. He's always wanted
He's always wanted
But you
Man City
can't-
now.
If Arsenal came to him and said, look, end of the season, it's yours, I'd be very surprised if he'd turn that down. I don't think he'd take it mid-season. I don't see him walking out on Leicester and the way the season's going. And I think he would be...
You can't choose when you manage a club.
Really
The offer
difficult.
comes along and it's yes or no, isn't it?
Really difficult.
Well, he left Celtic mid-season and he got a lot of criticism for that north of the border, and people were saying, why have you walked out in a treble, but he took it at the right time. But I don't think it'd suit Arsenal actually to have him now. I think if he goes in now, with the mess that he'd inherit, it might actually set him back. He'd lose the momentum that he'd pick up in the summer. So I think, but if it did come up in the summer, I think of course he'd take it. It's a London job, isn't it?
I think he'd be the best. He'd be the best pick as well. I mean, he would communicate a message. He's a very good communicator, and you know he's proven in the Premier League.
Yeah. Mikel Arteta, former Arsenal player, of course, linked with the job before when Arsene Wenger left. That's the back of the Sunday Mirror. They're convinced.
Arsenal think very highly of him. They think he can do a good job. They've always liked him. That's why Guardiola made him a coach. He thinks highly of him as well. But if Ljungberg gets off to a good start, would you see Arteta as any better an option than Ljungberg? Because Ljungberg's steeped in Arsenal. He's done his bits of coaching. What's the difference?
He'd have more experience than Arteta by that point because Arteta's not managed. But I mean, another guy that probably is a candidate, depending on how they want to play, if they have these philosophy ideas, a bit Benitez, because are they prepared to change the model and go back to a more George Graham style of football with a guy that will get them organised, or is Benitez just too much of a risk? But I think he, again, would be a decent candidate because of his track record in the Premier League and in Europe.
And what a club with class is that's how they always like to think of themselves. What about Southgate? Classy character.
Yeah, and he'd be a good
dignified man.
A good fit for a long-term strategy, long-term plan. His club record in Middlesbrough wasn't great, but I think you've got to kind of look beyond that. And next summer, if he does well with England, he might decide it's time to go. If he doesn't do well, then he might decide it's time to go.
Yeah.
So next summer could be a good time, and Arsenal would be perfect for Gareth Southgate. But whether a lot of clubs these days have these ideas that we need to have a continental manager and need to look beyond that. But I think you look at what Chris Wilder's done on a smaller level at Sheffield United, that I think this trend for going for coaches that have got just pure coaches, the Pellegrinis, the Emerys, it seems to be moving away towards people with a feel for the club. And I like a Chris Wilder that even Klopp...
The legendary Chris Wilder, as the Sunday Telegraph have referred to him this morning on the front of their sports section.
Yeah, guys that
Legendary
invest in the
Sheffield.
club, guys that invest in the club and the fan base and show they're there for the right reasons rather than just passing through. And there have been a few coaches in the Premier League in recent years that look like they're just passing through and they've left no real mark or imprint. And I think maybe Arsenal needs somebody that will, like the George Graham Wenger days, actually embrace the club and everything that goes with it.
It's not going to happen, but I'd love to see Conte at Arsenal. just to go and shake everybody up. They wouldn't know what hit them. It'd be brilliant.
No, they wouldn't. Successful coach as well, Antonio Conte won the Premier League title, of course, with Chelsea. OK, next up, we're going to talk about a team that, well, they're on their way to winning the Premier League title. That's Liverpool. OK, another win for Liverpool yesterday. Front of the Sunday Telegraph this morning, Matt's paper, Virgil van Dijk scoring a couple of goals in that 2-1 victory over Brighton at Anfield, which leads me on to a question actually I'd like to pose you guys, which is, I saw a team of the decade early this week which had Virgil van Dijk in, Vincent Kompany, and I did think to myself, hold on, what about John Terry? Is Virgil van Dijk a better central defender than John Terry?
He's a different defender, isn't he? But I think,
Central defender?
yeah, but they're a different sort of player. But I take your point and look at how many trophies John Terry won this decade. And people say it's not all about trophies, but I think it is at the end of the day. And, you know, I suppose Vidic and Ferdinand have probably gone over the hill a bit by the time they entered this decade. But I think he's a brilliant defender, but I do think it's a bit early to start saying he is worthy of a place in the team of the decade. It's what, 2018 he went to Liverpool, so Kompany, you know, no question about that. But I think, yeah, Chelsea have had some decent defenders, and Terry's been pretty consistent from the opening half of the decade anyway.
Matt, you've seen Terry week in, week out in a Chelsea shirt. I have as well. Sure, we all have on around this table. But that sort of intimate knowledge of a central defender.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
I just think it's implausible that it's just the first man on the team.
I agree
sheet.
with you.
Whatever
but
you think
often
about.
it's who you're watching every week, isn't it? And like you say, most weeks I'm watching, you know, Chelsea or Tottenham, and my view is coloured by that. If I was watching Liverpool every week or Manchester City every single week live, my view would be coloured by that. I'd probably go John Terry. But that said, with a slight bias of having watched Chelsea so closely.
Easy solution. 3 at the back.
3-5-2.
3-5-2.
Or 3-4-3.
Terry's in with those two.
Yeah. Okay. Another significant win though here for Liverpool, because they already knew the result, of course, at St James's Park yesterday. So they're aware of that, and they're just marching on.
They are, but I think even they would admit they're not playing at their absolute best, as well as they could be. But they're establishing such a lead now that you feel like, if it does go a bit wonky, if they don't get the breaks, which they have been getting a few breaks and, you know, scoring late on, there's starting to be enough leeway now for them to go through a little bit of a rocky patch and probably not have to worry. They put a lot of daylight between them. And look, good teams do win games late on. You know, it's not an offence to score in the 87th minute and the 85th as they have done, shown a lot of resilience, and it's really impressive. You cannot see them being caught now, can you really?
I think it was massive yesterday as well. They've had a tough week with the Napoli game. Fabinho gets injured, and you just start to think, oh, is that going to have an effect now?
Plus Alisson sent off, of course, yesterday as well.
But for them to actually stretch their lead in a week where they've had to play Napoli and had Fabinho, one of their most influential players, injured, feels massive to me. It's theirs to lose now.
And nobody's playing well enough to really challenge them. City haven't been consistent enough, and Leicester, to be fair, have. But whether Leicester can sustain it, they play them on Boxing Day, don't they, at Leicester? So that is a really big game if Leicester can continue till then. But
why would anybody think Leicester can't? I mean, it's not like they haven't won the Premier League recently. What's not making people think, I wonder if Leicester could catch Liverpool?
If Jamie Vardy got injured.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What if he didn't?
Exactly.
But when
that's probably the only thing. There's probably 3 key positions in that Leicester where if they just got one injury, you'd sense they couldn't really sustain it.
And when Leicester won it, they had a year when there wasn't really an outstanding top team. Well, Liverpool are the outstanding top team this time, and they're going to have to catch a very good team to win it. But I think Liverpool play Everton on Wednesday, don't they? I think Everton haven't won at Anfield since 1999. So if Everton can get a result there, that might trigger some sort of nerves, but you just can't see Everton getting anything at Anfield.
They've got 9 games between now and December 29th, Sean. Can I cast your mind back to the World Club Cup when Manchester United went to Brazil? How much did it... Because that was the famously, or infamously, the year they pulled out of the FA Cup. But how did it affect their season?
I think I think it's going to take a little bit of a toll on Liverpool. I think Klopp's already alluded to the fact that it's going to be a difficult time, but aren't teams geared up a little bit better for it now? Also, the World Club Cup for Liverpool is slightly shorter than it was for Manchester United. It's only a week. So I think they'll be able to cope with it and very much split the two. I think when Man United did it, it was a bit of a juggling act, which they found quite difficult. I don't think Liverpool are going to struggle with that. You know?
They're also getting a week in the sunshine in Qatar in December, which might actually be not a bad thing. You know, that it could be some sort of mid-season break just when they need it. And United also went in 2008. They went to Japan and came back, and you know, Fergie went on consistently about this game at Stoke. They came back from Tokyo 2 days later, played at Stoke, won with a late Tevez goal 1-0, and that set them on the way to win the title. So I think Liverpool will be fine.
You can deal with it. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Are you comfortable with the Carabao Cup game against Aston Villa? Then, of course, the next day, of course, they'll play two different teams, and we know the reasons why. But are you comfortable with them playing in successive days and the way they will have to manage and navigate it?
I don't think it's great, but I don't think it's Liverpool's fault. I think that's on the EFL. You know, why do they have to have a two-legged semi-final in January? Why couldn't they be a bit more flexible in terms of have a one-off semi-final somewhere else and, you know, ease the fixture list that way? So Liverpool have been successful. They've been
in fairness, Liverpool have done their best to get out of the EFL, haven't they? They've played an ineligible player, played a load of kids and conceded 5 goals to Arsenal. They're pretty unlucky to still be in it.
Now, the EFL knew that Liverpool were going to be playing this competition when the season was drawn up, so I put it on them rather than
And
Liverpool.
the way this competition is growing, the Club World Cup, eventually something has got to give, and they will have to make it a single game semi-final. Things will just get far too congested. They eventually they're going to have to say, right, okay, we accept it. One leg. Semi-final.
Okay. Let's talk about Guardiola and his current mood and where he's at. Fascinating piece in the Sunday Times this morning with Jonathan Northcroft talking about Soyuncu at Leicester City. And we know his emergence and his promotion into the heart of that Leicester City defence. But I thought more intriguingly that Jonathan writes in his intro, Pep Guardiola is likely to stay and oversee the rebuilding of Manchester City's squad. He seems pretty sure that he's staying. But where is Guardiola? He looked in a pretty dark place yesterday.
Yeah, but I think what Pep realises is that everything at Man City's built for him. It's been tailored for him. He's got the chief exec that he knows, the technical director in Chiqui Berghuis that he knows. The players have all been bought for him even before he arrived. It was all built for Pep. He's never going to work anywhere like that again in terms of the resources and everything, just doors opening for him. And I think he realises that if and when he does leave City, he's going to find it very hard to find a club that's going to have the same sort of resources and backing. So, yes, he'll be down because he's not used to being 11 points off the leaders at this stage of the season. But he's got a great situation there. He couldn't pick a better job in the world, and he's only, I don't even know, he's 50 yet. He's still quite a young coach. So, why would he leave Man City? You know, why would he leave and where would he go? I don't know.
Italy, because it's the next challenge for him, is it not?
But he doesn't have any club with the resources there. That I mean, Juventus, yeah, they're a big wealthy club, but the two Milan clubs are now beginning to get a bit of money as well. So I'd say it's City.
But you don't think it intrigues him to go to another country and win the title there?
He's got plenty of time, hasn't he?
Coaches like that, don't they, to be able to go and crack it in another country. He never seemed like a man who would stay at City forever for the whole.
It's quite interesting though, because there's an argument if he was to win a third successive title, that's the time to then go. Whereas with a new challenge presenting itself, like you say, to regenerate this team and squad, it's quite an interesting challenge.
But what about if he won the Champions League?
Well, he was at the Northern Managers Awards dinner last week in Manchester, so Jurgen Klopp was there as well, and they both gave a speech. And at the top of the table, they had every single trophy that the two clubs won last season. Now, on City's side, there was basically everything apart from the Champions League. And Pep made the joke saying to Klopp that, you know, I think you'd want to swap with me and I'll swap with you, so let's swap this season. And that kind of showed you that it is all about the Champions League. And if he wins the Champions League, then I think that might make him think, well, I've done it all now, so let's move on somewhere else.
Yeah, huge amount of respect for the two managers as well, going to the football writers' dinner on Sunday, because of the sheer demands on their time and the fixture, because of the fixture list.
Yeah, they both turned up and they both, like I say, made a real effort, and you know, Klopp hung around as well to speak to half the guys that were there. I think the Barnsley manager, which he kind of knew from Daniel Standell. So, you know, Klopp made a real effort. So did Pep. So yeah, I mean, a lot of managers in the past have decided not to bother, but they both showed up, and it was good.
Yeah, good for them. Is Pep paying the price a little bit for not refreshing the squad? The classic Fergie would have been to cut someone off at the knees, wouldn't it, at the end of the season? Say thanks very much, you're gone.
He is a little bit, but he's unlucky with Laporte, obviously, at the back, and Aguero up front. OK, you're going to get injuries. Liverpool have got one with Fabinho now. If those two had stayed fit, I think it'd be a very different state of play. But he's not, so he's got to live with it. And clearly, Fernandinho playing centre-back is not...
Could have been sent off yesterday,
He's not ideal for him. It clearly is not working very well. Jesus is Aguero light, isn't he? He's not as good.
He did want to make changes in the summer. He did want to bring a centre-half in, but at the time they had restrictions in terms of the amount of foreign players they had, so they couldn't bring a foreign centre-half in, which is why they tried for Harry Maguire, but they wouldn't compete with United, so that may have changed if they're targeting Sancho, but...
Why do you think they wouldn't? Why do you think they didn't just push it that
for Maguire,
little extra million or whatever, or 10 million?
Maybe they thought he's not worth it, and they might be right. I mean, I remember 18 months ago they decided that Van Dijk wasn't worth it, didn't they?
Yeah.
And, you know, if they'd have signed Van Dijk, I mean, history could have changed now because he'd made such an impact for Liverpool, and that's probably one of the biggest mistakes of City's 10 years, not signing Van Dijk, because he'd have taken them to a different level, and it would have denied Liverpool having their potential Ballon d'Or winner. So, yeah, it's all about picking the right moment. But I think Maguire, you probably thought £85 million was not worth the money, and they probably were right.
Newcastle, good reaction. Considering their,
Considering how bad they were against Aston Villa on Monday, they were terrible. And I thought, oh God, this is back to the dark days. This really poor performance. And Steve Bruce admitted it was awful. So to come out the way they did against City, and they've been a little bit of a bogey team, City. They won last season, just lost 1-0 at home the season before when Rafa decided to put everybody behind the ball and behind the halfway line for a long time, and Newcastle had one shot and nearly could have scored. So they do find it difficult against Newcastle. You know, Shelvey comes to the party every now and again, and he did that yesterday. You know what? Newcastle are showing a lot of battling qualities. I know you want me to talk about Man City, but I
actually want to talk about Newcastle.
Some good battling qualities, and the slight difference actually between Benitez and Bruce is that Bruce actually is prepared sometimes to have a go and risk losing 2 or 3-0 to have a go and attack sometimes. Benitez was always absolute total caution first. If we can get out 0-0 or a 1-0 win, that's fine. Bruce a little more expansive. He's got a bit of an outlet in St Maximum, who is a very exciting player, not a great finisher as we've seen, but a very exciting player. Almiron has an assist yesterday, and you know he buzzes around a lot. I'm still not convinced about him. Joe Linton, jury's definitely out on him, but there is a bit of hope. You know, and hey, hope at Newcastle is all you can ever have.
Bruce is doing a good job.
He's good.
Well, he's got
better off than Rafa at this
Tottenham
time.
away.
Yes.
Beat
Tottenham away.
Tottenham
beat Man
away.
United.
Manchester United at home. Secured this result against Manchester City. That's
And they're certainly not playing any worse football than Rafa, and as you say, arguably maybe slightly better.
On that basis, why has Rafa got this sort of mythical influence?
I don't know.
In the sport,
it seems that some people who work with him fall in love with him, don't they? I don't really get it.
He did win trophies, and he won trophies at a very, very good level. And he's clearly an excellent manager. He sets up teams very, very well, and he did set up Newcastle to be quite a strong unit. He fought the board for more money, for better players, etc. Didn't get it, but he had the support of the crowd who wanted Mike Ashley to spend some money. I don't think that's mythical status. I think that's just understandable why the fans would want the club to be taken on. If you've got Rafa Benitez, who is a top-class manager, you want that team to be in a place commensurate with Rafa Benitez's status, and it wasn't, and it frustrated Rafa and it frustrated the fans. So I don't think I don't think you should castigate the supporters for thinking Rafa was a top bloke.
Yeah,
a good manager. He was, but I always thought Steve Bruce would do a good job at Newcastle. A lot of Newcastle fans were against him, but I thought he'd do a good job. I think he's done a good job pretty much everywhere he's been. He's got a very good track record.
Yeah. Has he got the fans behind him now, Mark? Should he have the fans behind? Given those results just listed, Tottenham away, Manchester United beat Manchester United at home.
Yeah, he seems to have got the fans more on his side. I think there'll always be doubters because, for a variety of reasons, managing Sunderland and having a negative track record in terms of the odd difficult season. But yeah, I think, like I said, the results speak for themselves, and he's getting results. And I saw a few of those Newcastle games under Benitez, and they were pretty hard to watch. And I think at least, like you're right, Bruce does. It's never going to be Kevin Keegan football, is it? But he does make them play with a bit more adventure, and that will win people over on his side because he plays like they want them to play with a bit of ambition.
You've got to admire Bruce as well. He's got a slight masochistic streak, hasn't he? They're prepared to take the Newcastle job on. He was a Newcastle fan. He would never have turned that down, having managed Sunderland, managed Birmingham and Aston Villa, managed Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday.
It's what you've always wanted, isn't it? A Geordie in charge of Newcastle.
Absolutely.
And you get in charge and he's vilified straight away because, for whatever reason...
Anyone was going to be because of the way Rafa went.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was
it?
always difficult.
It was more to do with Rafa going, I think.
Yeah. 14th in the table at the moment, Newcastle, after that 2-2 result. Let's just quickly go back to Man City. 11 points off Liverpool as things stand after 14 games. When you look at the league table, is it unacceptable, or is it just the case that Liverpool, with 13 wins and a draw so far in the Premier League, are just the outstanding side so far?
Given what City have done as well, and like you said, they've had injuries, I think to say unacceptable would have been incredibly harsh. I mean, it's also... It's just human nature that...
No, it is harsh. I think it is.
The intensity at some point as well, when you've won title after title, is just going to drop that 0.5% or 1%. It's completely natural, and Liverpool's hunger for it is such that that probably gives them an extra percent. So, no, I don't think it's unacceptable at all. I just think it's...
The producer and I were having a conversation early this morning about differences in personalities and Pep's demand to win trophy after trophy, successive Premier League titles, third Premier League title. Would you be the type, if you won one European Cup, to go and win another the following season, or would you be a European Cup and out?
Me personally, well, I'm lazy, so I'd be European Cup and out, and I'd go and put my feet up.
I'd want another one. Win it again. Which I think
Yeah.
is
Roy Keane over here.
Yeah, you would want to win it again, I think, if you did it. But I could see Pep got intrigued by another challenge, maybe after another sabbatical, and intrigued by... I think there must be something about Italy for any coach to take it on.
I think it'll start to gnaw away in that he's not won the Champions League since 2011. I think he's had the resources at Bayern Munich and now at City to do it. And like I said before, if he goes somewhere else, Juventus going to have a better chance of winning the Champions League.
I agree. If and when he leaves City, I could see him regretting it.
But that's why, if he wins it this season, then it could be a very different thing.
Because you're not going to get... You're right, you're not going to get the same conditions anywhere else.
But do we see the Champions... We don't... Apart from Liverpool, I don't think we perhaps take the Champions League... perceive or see the Champions League in the same way as Real Madrid, for example, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, who at the outset of every single season say, we have to win this trophy. That's why we're here. That's what we're here for.
I think Pep wants City to think that. I think that's one thing he's found
mentality.
difficult. Yeah, that the club... I think the club wants it. I think the hierarchy wants it. I think he's said a few times that the fans don't seem to want it. The fans don't embrace the Champions League at all at City.
They don't like UEFA, do they? I mean,
no, but that's years ago now. I mean, City beaten UEFA, so I don't know why they don't like UEFA.
Beaten UEFA?
Well,
How do you beat UEFA?
Well,
5-0, was it?
Well, UEFA, the UEFA haven't been able to do anything with City for whatever reason. City have either, found a way around it, or UEFA haven't been able to lay a glove on City, and so the fans should think, well, we've beaten you.
Yeah. OK, we'll see if Man City can claw that 11-point difference back over the next, 24 games left in the Premier League season. OK, next up, we're going to talk about England. The Euro 2020 draw was last night in Bucharest. More on that in a moment. Welcome back. A reminder of us who's with us this morning. Sean Custis, Mark Ogden and Matt Law. And a reminder of the papers as well. Sunday Mirror, go for the art. This is the Emirates exclusive. Neil Moxley says that Mikel Arteta, currently at Manchester City, Pep Guardiola's number 2, is the top target for Arsenal. The Star say, though, it's Brendan Rodgers. The job Brendan has always wanted. His Leicester side in action this afternoon against Everton. Silver in trouble there, of course. Sunday Express, £12.5 million handcuffs. Mauricio Pochettino can't take another team in the Premier League until next season. Linked, of course, with Manchester United and Arsenal. Sunday Telegraph, reflecting on Liverpool's victory over Brighton yesterday. Virgil van Dijk with 2 goals. Matt's story, Pochettino warned off taking the Arsenal job by close friends. Sunday Times, City targeting Soyuncu, who'll be in action this afternoon for Leicester against Everton, to plug their leaky defence. Potential new recruits at Manchester City. Pep not happy, particularly with his team's performance yesterday, or the results, should I say, against Newcastle. Big day for Dave Martin. Debut for West Ham at the age of 33. Kept a clean sheet. Alvin Martin's son. Of course, emotional scenes at the end of that game. Dele's doing the Ali shuffle. A couple of goals for him yesterday. He's in top form. But we'll talk about the Euro 2020 draw, which has made it onto the back page of the Mail on Sunday this morning. England pitched into a group with our old friends Croatia, Czech Republic, who England beat handsomely at home but lost away, Matt. Were you excited about the draw? I know you were at White Hart Lane yesterday, but did you rush home to catch the draw?
I was still writing my copy up, but I stopped writing my copy up for 10 minutes and watched the draw come through. I struggled to get excited by draws. I was intrigued to see whether we got the sort of group of death which we avoided.
Yep.
The fact they're all at Wembley. I mean, a couple of those games, Croatia and Czech Republic, if we weren't playing at Wembley, you would say could be quite tricky games. Croatia aren't what they were, but if you were playing them on neutral soil, who knows? And Czech Republic obviously beat us out there. So, but the fact it's all at Wembley, I can only really see three wins. I think it's a good draw.
It's not a group of death, is it? It's a potential second round of death.
Yeah.
Because if they win the group and get, is it Germany, France or Portugal? So the advantage of being at home at Wembley is perhaps a disadvantage because you run into a really tough second round game in Dublin. So if they win the group, England don't tend to beat the big teams at tournaments, do they? So, and you class Germany, France and Portugal as big teams. So, but this is a rising England team with a lot of good players, a lot of confidence, so perhaps this is the time, but it is a tough second round.
So do we try and finish second? That's well,
Can't do that, can you?
the elephant in the room, is it? Try and finish second so you get a slightly easier path in the second round, although you're still going to run into a harder one in the quarterfinal. But then again, you're going to get Spain.
Yeah, you're going to
probably
play a decent team at some point, aren't you?
Actually, you can't get Spain probably in the second round, can you? Because we face runners-up, don't we?
So
Strangely,
awesome.
even if we're runners-up, we face runners-up. So it's probably going to be a quarter-final if you're runners-up.
Yeah.
But feel-good factor will be all around. 3 lines on the shirt. Euro '96. Came so close to getting the World Cup final. There'll be a bandwagon rolling. They'll be under quite a bit of pressure actually. England, I think they'll feel it certainly more than they did in the World Cup because it was unexpected probably to get to the semi-final. This time I think there's a lot of expectation that, well, even to win it. So I think the players will feel it like they've not felt it before. The old weight of the shirt will be back.
Yeah, I mean, those 3 group games, people will be going to Wembley expecting not just victories but performances. And then I think anything less than a semi-final will be regarded by a lot of people as a disappointment and a failure. So Sean's right, it's a much different level of expectation on them.
Would you prefer though to draw a big team for a bit of needle in the group, or are you happy with
I'm happy.
Croatia, Czech
I'll
Republic,
take the
and then
draw,
one other
yeah.
of Scotland, Israel,
And
Norway,
also
Serbia?
Croatia are competitive, and they're not sort of 3 absolute gimmies, are they? They're going to be competitive enough that you're then at a level for the next round. I think group-wise, it's a great draw.
They've lost to both Croatia and the Czechs in the last 2 years, haven't they?
Yeah.
In terms of qualifiers and World Cups, so they're not gimmies. But I take your point in terms of a bigger game to make them ready for the second round. But you tell what you get, don't you? Croatia's a tough enough game.
Yeah. Was the rest? The group. It feels a little bit uninspiring. What about the rest of the draw, though, Sean? We mentioned the group of death, of course. France, Germany, Portugal.
If you were any
But
one of
beyond
those
that-
if you're in one of those 3 sides, though, you really are cursing, aren't you? Because what have they done to deserve getting all in that same group? And they'll be looking at England thinking they're at home and they got a group like that, and we get this one.
Yeah.
They'd be pretty upset, I would say.
Decent draw for Wales, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
they've-
decent draw for Wales,
They've
except
got
they're
the
based in.
toughest travelling, haven't
Yeah.
they?
They've got a
Baku.
base in Baku for Wales, which is, as anybody who went to the Europa League final tells you, is not an easy one to be based there. I don't think that's good fun for their fans particularly. But they've got a bit of a chance.
Yeah, I think is it Switzerland and Turkey and Baku and then Italy and Rome in the final game. So
That's right.
They've got a chance of getting through.
Yeah.
It's quite hard to get your head round, though, isn't it? Just because of this different formula of all being different cities and not anyone based in any one place. It's quite hard to get your head round it all.
But it's a big summer for Southgate in the sense that, as you were saying before, that if he does really well, does he see that as a time to move on, or does he stick around for the World Cup? But if he does badly, does the clamour then come for a change? Before, obviously, it's all about Qatar 2022. But what is doing well, what is doing badly, and is a second round exit to Germany, France, or Portugal?
Yeah, I mean, if they lose in the last 16, there'll be conversations, won't there? But who on earth would you replace him with?
No, absolutely. But that's how it
Are we
happened.
getting around to replace them just based on this draw
You'll be
already?
doing that
We're
soon,
already
innit?
thinking
You'll
about
be
what
doing that soon,
Well,
innit?
the only thing I'd say about that, Sean, is a couple of weeks ago after we played whoever I
Montenegro,
can't remember.
Slovak-
No,
no,
it
Kosovo.
was.
Kosovo.
Thank you, Kosovo. Thank you. You'd never know I was there actually, but yeah, it was Kosovo. Thanks, Mark, for helping me out. But Southgate did raise that prospect
He
himself. He did say, yes, I'll be there in 2022, but if things go badly next summer, then the country can turn very quickly. So Matt's point about actually who would you choose is relevant because Southgate himself has brought it up.
You're always under pressure as the England manager in a tournament, except for Roy Hodgson in 2012 when he was parachuting.
Well, and Gareth Southgate at Russia.
Right.
He was under no pressure.
Well, do you not think if we'd gone out of group stage, it would have been a...
yeah, but that group...
Out you go.
Yeah.
Well,
there wasn't much pressure, though, was there? There's
Hodgson
barely any expectation.
Hodgson was a free hit. I think this for Southgate is huge.
Yeah, I agree. This one is.
Really big.
Okay, so how are we going to do?
Well, I don't know whether we're facing Germany, Portugal, or France. Getting past that second, I don't know if we win that group is going to be really hard. I mean, I would expect us, given you're at home, I would expect us to get the final, given we're at home.
But they're not at home in the second round. No, they're in Dublin or
but given well, we've got 3 at home to start with. We've got 3 at home to start with, but it's a good point. But I still expect us to go to the final.
Yeah.
I think we are. I think we're good enough.
That's precious. See, Sean's already.
I think
if we don't get to the final, you want him out.
We're good enough. I don't actually want Southgate out. I think he's doing a really good job, and I think we are good enough to get to the final and to win it. We've got enough good players. We're proving we've got good players. Is there a team?
I don't think we're good enough to get to the final.
Is there?
We've not been that great recently.
On.
France are world champions.
We've not been that great.
Mbappe, Kante,
we lost to Czech Republic.
I think we've got enough good players.
I think if we get to the semi-final, we've done well.
Yeah, I think they can get to the final, but I think that second round
What's
is a
the
real
point of
hurdle.
getting the semi-final? It's no fun, is it, losing the semi-final? Russia was the most crushing experience, I think, of watching England, losing that semi-final.
I
Especially
disagree.
going 1-0 up, thinking this is the moment.
The run to get there was brilliant.
This is when we're finally going to do it. I'm finally going to see England in a World Cup final. And that was crushing to see them lose the semi-final. I don't think there's much merit, really.
I loved it.
I loved it. I
Even
loved the
worse
World
losing the
Cup.
semi-final at Wembley, wouldn't it, again?
Are we playing the semi-final?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get to England in a Euro 2020 semi-final. Of course, it would be at Wembley Stadium, home of football. Okay, next up, we'll go back to the Premier League. Sean and Matt were both at White Hart Lane yesterday. Mark was at Stamford Bridge to watch Chelsea lose at home to West Ham. More on those 2 games coming next. Welcome back. You're watching the Sunday Supplement. Of course, straight after us at 11:30 will be Goals on Sunday. Let's find out what Alex and Cammy have got lined up for us. Cammy.
Good morning.
Good morning. Cammy, you good?
I couldn't be any better.
Well, we've got lots to talk about today.
We have indeed. We've got loads and loads coming up. Liverpool go another 2 points clearer at the top of the table. Wow, that's amazing. West Ham win at Chelsea for the first time in donkey's years.
And at the other end of the table?
The other end of the table, it's Southampton that beat Watford, but VAR controversy in that one.
Oh, well, we'll be joining us. Well, join us today at 11:30.
Yeah, we look forward to that as ever. Goals on Sunday follows us a little bit later on. Matt, you were at White Hart Lane yesterday, the new White Hart Lane Stadium. Was it the new Tottenham that you witnessed?
Well, it is a different Tottenham, for sure. I mean, there were 4 centre-backs on the pitch. There's one playing at left-back and one playing just in front of the defence for Tongan and Dyer. There were 2 long ball goals, a lot of long balls out of the goalkeeper, and they won. And Dele Alli scored again. So it is new, yeah. He's already putting his stamp on it, Jose, but 3 wins out of 3. Levy was there watching. He clearly has only brought him in to win. I don't think Levy now cares how they do it as long as they win. And
You think that's the message from the board, is it?
Yeah.
Get these trophies.
All he had to do as well to start with was get the season alive again. They were 14th when he came in. They're now starting today in 5th place, only 6 points behind Chelsea. The season is very much alive again. And
But why, if the message from the board, message from the top is, OK, get trophies, whatever. Why didn't he say to Pochettino, get trophies, whatever? Just do it. Whatever it takes.
Well, because they're not
silver at
prepared
the
to do
silver.
whatever it takes. That's the point. They've brought in Mourinho at a time where they don't have to do whatever it takes. They can't spend a lot of money. They're not going to spend a lot of money, and you can come in fresh with different ideas to a group of players who've been together for 4 years and make that impact. I'm not sure, having been with them for 4 years, and them all getting stale together, that you can actually do the same thing. And Pochettino wasn't going to turn around and just throw all of his tactics out the window and start doing what Mourinho's doing. No way.
It was really, really interesting to see them yesterday contrast with the way they were playing last season. Just to see Mourinho applauding fullbacks who were launching the ball down the line, applauding when they, a long ball. And they did play some long balls under Poch. It wasn't like they never did, but he didn't seem to matter if they played a great long ball up and they lost possession, as long as they were all over the defender to win it back again. And there was a real striking thing at the end, towards the end of the game. Bournemouth had just scored the second goal. It was 3-2. Eric Dyer kicked off, and he kicked it. He launched it at the corner flag. He didn't pass to anybody. He kicked it like a rugby union.
Mourinho was pointing there
He
as well.
pointed him to it, and he kicked it right down into the corner. It was like a line out 5 yards out. And then they pressed Bournemouth into the corner. So
Are you saying this is good or bad? Good or bad
I'm just saying
management?
it's different. I'm just saying, Poch, you would never have seen that in a million years under Pochettino.
If they win, it's good.
Yeah, it's exactly what Tottenham
It's just
do.
sensible. That strikes me as just being sensible.
Yeah, if they win, it's all good.
It's
But you've got to win doing it.
I just think right now is exactly what Tottenham need. I just think it probably will be a short-term thing. It'll probably end up in tears in 18 months, 2 years. But I think right now he's got a team that, with his coaching and with his toughness and mentality, will take them to a different level. And he probably thinks he can win the Champions League this year.
Is it not a team
with that
slightly
team.
caught?
I think he probably can.
Slightly caught in the middle in that they're used to playing sort of intricate passing moves under Pochettino, and Mourinho's always also saying you can launch it down the line as well. So they've got an interesting combination of the two at the moment. You wonder if Mourinho will become a little more pragmatic later on and take that side out of it. I mean, he scored 10 goals in 3 games.
I think it's more what he says to them in the heads in the dressing room rather than what he does on the pitch. It's more about instilling that, like I said, toughness and that winning streak that they probably didn't have. When I went to the Champions League final in Madrid, you got the sense, just being around Tottenham, that they were just happy to be there. With Liverpool, you knew they desperately wanted to win it. With Tottenham, it was like, we're in the Champions League final, this is brilliant. But you've got to want to win it. And if he was a manager in Madrid, there's no way that I had that sense it would have been win it. And when I said they could win the Champions League this season, you get the defence sorted out. He's got a striker in Harry Kane that will score goals against anybody. Dele Alli's playing again. He's got 2 wingers who can score goals and create. He's got his defensive midfielders. It's a perfect Mourinho team. It's a bit like the Chelsea team he started out with. You know, tough centre halves, holding midfielders, great centre forward. The goalkeeper might be a problem, but
it's perfect for him. He's basically got 4. He likes to have kind of 4 attacking players, and then 6 defensive players, and you've got that.
He made the point very much about Dele Alli. He's saying, "What have you done to change it?" He said, "Well, I don't think he's a midfield player. I think he should play higher up the pitch." And it's really clear he's feeding off everything that comes off Kane or as support for him. It's slightly it's different. He's definitely pushed higher up the pitch. No question about it. I think, and he's obviously loving it and benefiting from it. It looks like if you were going to be nitpicky, you'd just say there were a couple of occasions he's getting so excited in this team when he got through and he gave a bad ball, didn't he? A couple of times when he could have set them up. They could have had a few more.
He should have scored a hat-trick, shouldn't
he? Yeah,
really?
but he's absolutely revelling in this sort of role, and you do wonder
it's
why
the same
Poch
role.
didn't.
Well, he did.
Well, he not
when
that high
Dele
up the
Alli
pitch.
first came through.
Yes,
he
when
had
he
him
first
playing
came through,
right off Kane as almost a second striker.
Then he didn't, did he?
No, then he
moved him back.
didn't. But that's the position that Dele Alli broke through and did brilliantly, and basically playing as a second striker.
So why did Pochettino change it?
I don't know.
Well, you probably watched them more than I have.
But I don't know why he
changed
changed it. I don't know why he changed it. I couldn't tell you.
He'd been injured at the start of the season, of course. He was coming back from injury, and he was being slowly brought back into.
It could be to do with Son, because when Dele Alli was at his best under Pochettino, Son wasn't really playing that much, and then Son comes in and the whole thing changes a bit.
It's still noticeable though that the fans at home haven't sung Mourinho's name.
Well, I was going to say, how long before it becomes irresistible? Because it's 3 wins out of 3 now.
I gather the fans sang his name away at West Ham
did,
a little bit, but not at home. And he hasn't even been introduced to the crowd. That strikes me as mildly odd. I thought they might have done that yesterday. Just say, "Welcome, my manager."
You just get misty-eyed about when Keegan took over at St James's Park.
Are they a little bit embarrassed?
Well,
Are they a bit embarrassed by what's happened?
you probably get a better reception from the Man United fans on Wednesday than the Tottenham fans, which is a bit weird.
I think the away fans might be more.
But it was after the end at West Ham when they sang his name. They waited right until the end, and he's kind of sheepish on the pitch. Shall I applaud? Oh, okay, they're applauding me and singing my name. But
If they beat Chelsea on December the 22nd, it will be all out Mourinho love from Tottenham fans. That'll be the moment that no one is worried about being respectful to Pochettino.
how does he approach the? He'll be asked all about the Manchester United experience ahead of that game. How is he best served? What's his best reaction to that?
He's been very respectful, hasn't he, since then? He's talking about how many positive messages he had from United, and when it ended, it wasn't very positive. There was a lot of stuff coming out that he was not well liked, and it was horrible for the last 6 months, and he fell out with people. But he's probably landed on his feet. He's got out of a club that he got the United job at the wrong time, just as Guardiola had arrived at City with a team ready to win things, and he probably realised at United that once you pull back the curtain, that the squad wasn't very good at all, and he's inherited a much better squad and team at Tottenham than he had at United. And I think from day one at United, he was always fighting against the tide, in the sense that he wasn't even the king of his own city, never mind the Premier League, because Pep and City were so dominant, so he never really enjoyed the experience. And he left there with, problems with Pogba, problems with De Gea, a lot of people that didn't really want him there. So he's come out well, hasn't he? He's had a year off and he's got a good job now at Tottenham, which he could win something.
But he never seemed happy from the moment he started at United. He never seemed happy. I think he would have been happy. When he went back to Chelsea, it was always said that Man United was the job he wanted there, rather than go back to Chelsea the second time. And he looked pretty miserable when he went back to Chelsea for the second time. Pretty miserable when he went back to Man United.
He should have gone to United in 2013 after Fergie, when he would have been a much better fit than Moyes. And by the time he got the United job, United weren't United anymore. Whether they were a club that was in a mess and the squad wasn't very strong, and it was a rebuilding job. And he probably realised it was a much tougher job than he thought it would be, without the ability to compete.
I think you made the point earlier, Sean, that he reminds you of Mourinho in 2004 when he arrived.
First time around.
When he arrived as the special one.
Certainly not, as I say, certainly not at Chelsea second time around or at Man United. But the same, I went to when he came to Chelsea first time, and that glint in his eye, the whole thing.
He's only been there 10 days, or let's be honest.
I totally accept that. But I think he's probably even more surprised sitting there thinking, actually, this is a pretty good gig. It's a little bit of a free pass, isn't it?
Absolutely.
What a joy after all the...
Yeah.
And let's face it, the pressure at Man United is much higher. It is harder. I'm not saying he doesn't have to do something, but you're not under pressure to win things.
No, you haven't got a Guardiola down the road overshadowing you, have you?
We haven't got anything down the road.
You've got Lampard, the guy that, he's old player.
Well, this is it.
You've got nothing at Arsenal.
So he is the star attraction in London, which he will love. He was never really the star attraction in Manchester, was he?
No, but
which he would hate.
It was pantomime villain stuff. Exactly. Everyone fell in love with Pep, and it was all negative with Jose, and he just didn't seem happy from day one.
Yeah, he's certainly happy now. 3 wins out of 3 for Tottenham and their new manager. An important win yesterday against Bournemouth for them as well. And Dele Alli back to form. I did bill that we would talk about the events at Stamford Bridge yesterday. We'll talk about them in part 5 because Mark was there to watch West Ham beat Chelsea at the Bridge yesterday. More on that's coming next. Welcome back. Mark was at Stamford Bridge yesterday to see West Ham. Surprise win for them. Talk us through it, because nobody expected it. We had this extraordinary story of Alvin Martin's son, Dave Martin, and his West Ham debut at the age of 33. They had to do something, and that was a big call by Pellegrini. It was a call that paid off for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the game last week against Tottenham when they were awful and the goalkeeper was awful, and the question is where you're going to drop him.
You're always down in London these days.
I know.
What is this all about?
It's like the action's down here, isn't it? It's all happening in London. But Pellegrini made the change, and Martin was exceptional. The fans really got behind him, because the West Ham fans, you get the sense they're on the cusp of turning on Pellegrini. But I think David Martin was a great populist move as well, because they got behind him because of the connection with Alvin Martin and everything. He played well, gave the team a lift, and even Pellegrini looked a different character yesterday. He was on the touchline, giving instructions, being passionate. And I think what summed it up was his row with Felipe Anderson when taking him off in the second half. And Anderson wasn't happy. They were 1-0 up at the time. It was clearly a move to kind of consolidate. And Pellegrini gave it back. He gave as good as he got. And I've never seen that with him. At City, he was just very much kind of this passionate figure that would just stand there.
So he was the charming man.
Charming man, hands in his pockets, just not really getting involved. But it meant a lot to him yesterday. After the game, he was high-fiving all these coaching staff and embracing. And you could tell that he knew it was a big result. But it was a fair result. I think Chelsea had a real off day yesterday. Lampard made a few changes. You could argue they've been overperforming this season, and he's done great to get them where they are. But yesterday was a real kind of moment where they looked.
He said reality check, didn't he? He said for everybody at the club, because he could feel this this sort of sense that everybody was getting a little bit carried away
Yeah.
with a few results.
You know, Tammy Abraham wasn't fit, so they brought in Giroud, who looked a million miles from being anywhere near where he should have been. They just look like a team that hasn't been able to buy anyone this summer and potentially in January. And if he gets in the top 4, it'll be a brilliant season, but he's now got Jose breathing down his neck, and that might be significant because, you know, 6 points Tottenham under Jose, Frank, with a squad that needs a bit of reinforcements. They might get their way with if they win the appeal. I'm not sure how that'll go, but they look like, yeah, a reality check is the perfect phrase because it was. They probably looked like the 6th, 7th, 8th best team yesterday.
Yeah, you felt it was coming because we're both in Valencia in midweek in the Champions League. The defence looked like they're playing in roller skates, and there was a bit of that. There was a bit of that at times. Yesterday, Matt. But you actually felt it was coming, didn't you?
Yeah, I've felt for a little while there's going to be a bump in the road coming. They've had some luck. They've ridden their luck. They've given away a lot of chances to a lot of teams who haven't taken their chances. And it's probably natural as well. I mean, it's a young team, a young squad. They're not just going to be able to keep pushing through. And you always felt the odd injury here or there, and that they would then struggle. They've done well because Kante was out for a long time. Funnily enough, they haven't actually been that as good once Kante's come back. But it just felt like it was coming, and Lampard's right, it's a reality check for everyone. The only thing I would say, I was a bit surprised he made some of the changes he did yesterday. I mean, Azpilicueta, who had been at left back in Valencia, he's gone down to the bench. He's messed with the centre of defence again, which isn't. He's not quite found the right mix in the centre of defence. I think Kante didn't start, did he? Giroud's a weird pick because he hasn't even been bringing Giroud off the bench, whereas Batshuayi's been coming off the bench. So I felt the selection was a little bit odd. Easy to say now when they're lost. But I think there'll be more bumps in the road, and I agree with Mark. If he gets them in the top 4, it'll be an incredible job.
Yeah, just go back to Pellegrini. It was interesting what Mark said about him showing a bit of leadership, because in our paper on Saturday morning, Karen Brady said it's time for us all to show backbone and for leaders to show leadership, which was clearly a dig at Pellegrini to do that in a week when there's been a lot of talk about possibly Moyes coming back and all that. And you do wonder if he read The Sun on Saturday morning and thought, you know what, maybe I do. Maybe this is what's necessary at West Ham. It might not have been so necessary at Man City. Maybe West Ham is a different sort of team where you actually do have to show you're rattling some cages.
Definitely. The fans at West Ham want to see a bit of passion, don't they? They want to see somebody that's got a connection, and I don't think Pellegrini is a type of manager that will have a connection. It's just not his way. But he did show differences yesterday in the sense that he was, like I said, not kicking every ball, but he was certainly different to what he has been. And the fact that he made the big change with David Martin in goals told you that he was prepared to gamble, and that's what he needs to do a bit more, because brought Mikel Antonio back, and it could have been 2-0 because his goal was chalked out by VAR, which I'm not sure if it was right, but we mentioned VAR, haven't we? But it was a comfortable win actually.
Second mention of VAR because there was another controversy at Southampton yesterday. But Quique Sanchez-Flores, his side Watford were 1-0 up at St Mary's, and then of course Southampton came back. James Ward-Prowse, brilliant free kick to score the winner for Southampton. You've written about Quique Sanchez-Flores this week. We understand at this moment in time that he's speaking with the chief executive, Scott Duxbury. Does he survive that meeting, Matt?
No. I mean, the writing was on the wall this time last week. I mean, he basically put himself one game away from the sack, and it was always going to come because there's not been any bounce from making that change. There's not been. I mean, they are still conceding goals. They're still losing games. I feel a little bit for him because I thought the timing of Watford's last change was really dumb. They brought him in just before they were playing Arsenal and Man City, and then I think Wolves. So the opportunity to actually get a bounce probably wasn't there. I actually said at the time they'll go through another manager this season, and it was pretty predictable what was going to happen. But I think they've got to do it because they're only heading one way at the moment. They're definitely heading down at the moment. They've got to get someone in there who can...
But to be on manager number 3, so it's December the 1st today, so to be on to a third manager already.
It's worked for Watford in the past. It's been hard to criticise Watford. You felt like you should criticise them for the way they go through managers, and yet it's brought results. This time it's not, and what they're suffering from is what we were talking about before. They're now a club where people are just passing through so quickly. There can't be any connection with the fans. The fans aren't going to connect to anyone because they know they're going to go. And when you're at the bottom of the table, you need some life in you. You need some connection whereby even if you're losing games or playing badly. You know, Norwich will lose games. Their fans are going to be right behind them all season. Villa will lose games. Their fans are going to be right behind them all the way. I don't think Watford are going to have that with the nature of the way they do business.
Wasn't that the idea of bringing Flores back, though, that he'd done a pretty good job previously at
timing
Watford,
made
and
it
I was rather
impossible.
surprised that he got binned in the first place,
Yeah.
to be honest, and that they thought there might be a connection with him and the fans, and I know, I accept you don't get the bands, but something to bring a bit of community spirit.
I
But
don't
everyone
think-
probably
famous
just thought,
for.
we'll sack him again soon.
So the 6 months since they got to the cup final, and they were being extolled as this kind of, you know, this next wave of club like West Ham, like Everton, that could, or like Leicester, that could break into the top 8, and they got hammered in the cup final. And that seems to have had a massive.
Well, they had a terrible
effect on
run
them.
up to the cup final as well. It's kind of started before that.
Christmas drinks cancelled this
Yeah.
week as well. which-
But I mean, what they do next is anybody's guess.
Well, you can't
We'll
predict,
probably
can you?
find out later, but it's anybody's guess. This will not be a popular thing for me to say, but what they should do is appoint Sam Allardyce, because they're a big, physical, strong team, Watford, and I actually think he would keep them up. They'd probably have to then make a change again in another 6 months.
though, aren't they? I mean,
They're not that
all
far.
They're all,
You can get out of it.
You can
otherwise
get out
wouldn't-
of it,
Yeah.
but you need someone who's going to come in and do it a certain way. I don't think going down another sort of coach role, trying to do it the clever, I don't think that's going to do it. You need someone just in there rattling people.
If Sam Allardyce took that job and kept them up, they'd chairlift him through the streets of Watford.
I think he would. And I'm no big Sam Allardyce fan, as Sean knows, but I actually think he would.
Yeah, I think it's a good shout. I think he would do the job. And
Yeah. We need to talk another manager under pressure, Marco Silva at Everton. Everton's treatment of him this week, how does that leave you feeling?
I just think they looked at the next 2 fixtures and thought, like you were saying about a bounce, if you're going to get a new manager in, Leicester away and Liverpool away is not a great time to change your manager, is it? Let the old guy stay there and lose those 2 games. And make
Is that? Are you comfortable with that?
It's the way the game is, isn't it? I'm comfortable with it because, you know, Everton wanted Marco Silva a long time before they got him and upset Watford with the way that they were trying to get him. So football's a nasty business at times, and it's everyone involved knows what it's about. Marco Silva's not stupid. He knows that results will lead to this sort of situation. So we can get all moralistic about it, but it's just how it is.
They're not a good side though at the moment under him, are they? And you can't really see how they'll turn that around.
No. And I don't know what it is with Marco Silva. I'm not quite sure why so many
He'll go
clubs
back
have
to
been
Watford,
so
won't
keen
he?
to get him, you know.
If he gets sacked quick enough, he might go back to Watford.
Just imagine.
Amazing.
We can't get ahead of it.
But I mean,
Jose,
Everton questions are going to start getting asked about Mashiri soon, aren't they? Because he's a funny one for making decisions and going back on them.
But who's pulling the strings really?
Is it Marcel Brands? Is it Mashiri?
Or is it Usmanov?
I wouldn't know.
They need the ground, but their big problem is the neighbours. They've got this massive
They've got to get it.
successful
They're spending a
club
lot of money. I mean, in fairness to Mashiri, he's backing his managers with a lot of money. They're spending a lot of money and getting nowhere. At some point, they need to appoint someone who's going to get them somewhere.
signing Theo Walcott and Alex Iwobi. Makes you wonder what their long-term plan is.
I can't believe that Marco Silva wanted Alex Iwobi. I just cannot believe that.
He wanted Zaha, didn't he? And then
Yeah.
had to go for Iwobi.
Yeah, and
When
you
they
know,
realised they wouldn't get that
it was
deal
clear
over
early in the window that they weren't going to get Zuma out of Chelsea, and they didn't really seem to have a plan of what to do when they couldn't get Zuma. It all feels a
David
bit.
Moyes has been mentioned again for Everton. I think maybe David Moyes and Everton are a perfect match because Everton aren't a Marco Silva club. They're a club that has to play to their strengths and harness the community spirit, the people club thing, and a manager with a connection. I think that's what Everton need right now because they've gone for too many people that are passing
I think
through.
Sean Dyche should be perfect for Everton. Everton fans probably wouldn't want him, but I think Sean Dyche should get
Lost
them
at home
going.
to Palace yesterday.
Yeah,
I think Moyes would be quite keen to go back to Everton
Oh.
or to West Ham as long as
Sure he would.
as long as he gets a longer term deal. He's not going to go there and say I'll see it till the end of the season or what. He wants, I think now, owners to put some faith in him and say, all right. I mean, he's in a position where West Ham have been a little bit interested in him and Everton, and maybe he can turn around and say, right, back me with a 3.5-year contract.
If they lose today, they cannot send Marco Silva into Anfield on Wednesday night. Can they?
But who do they send?
might
in?
Who do they send?
Yeah.
Who's going to take that
Would you
job?
do that? Would they do that?
You seem very worried about how they.
I don't. I'm not.
About this.
I'm not comfortable with a guy who clearly they've decided that it's the end of the road. Why?
I mean,
why doesn't
What
they
about all the
I
things
mean-
he's done? I mean, does
know-
he deserve to be treated any different? I mean, he's walked out of clubs. Why?
Apparently last week, after they lost at home to Norwich, he was
Sorry,
called
yeah.
into a meeting with Mashiri, and it was openly discussed with him in the
Yeah.
meeting whether they were going to sack him.
Okay, I
That
think
all
they
felt
probably
odd.
will. Sorry, guys, I have to leave it there. Thanks to Sean, though, and to Mark and to Matt for their company this morning.